Hey guys, Legendary Grimlock here, and today I have a Unicron versus the Great Darkness. And this is about to be a bit of an educational point here for you guys here, especially on Unicron. So without further ado, let's begin. The Great Darkness is pretty much the embodiment of evil, chaos, everything wrong with DC. Okay, everything evil in DC, this is where it originates from. It pretty much it's spread across the multiverse. Okay, the Great Darkness is pretty much, like I said earlier, the embodiment of darkness and evil, and is responsible for every dark or villainous event in DC. Okay, so basically at the center of it all, you have the Great Darkness kind of just being the the catalyst for all of it. And then you have darkness and light. You see, darkness didn't like light at all, like, obviously, right? And then in response to darkness creating all these villains, the light created all these heroes in response to it, thus keeping the battle between light and darkness kind of at a stalemate for all eternity. But during Dark Crisis, this is where it kind of just oversimplified and then came into its own, right? So like I said earlier, every event and every character or every evil character that pretty much happened is from the Great Darkness. And the Great Darkness is so powerful, right? To the point where he's able to subjugate True Form Darkseid, the Empty Hand, Eclipso, Doomsday, Ares, and so on and so forth. He subjugated every one of these beings. Upside Down Man, all right? Necron. And this is absolutely ridiculous in power. Even Pariah, using the Great Darkness to subjugate villains under, well, his and by extension Deathstroke's control, right, was able to use the energies from these heroes and from these villains, right, and was able to birth a new multiverse. Not sure if it was a dark multiverse or an evil one, but we know a new multiverse was born. But let's really address the Dark Army here. Now, we all should know Doomsday's level at this point. Ares is the equivalent of Darkseid, of an avatar of Darkseid, which is known to stalemate the Anti-Monitor, so that will put him again multiversal. Upside Down Man was easily causing multiversal destruction. Necron was able to banish the Anti-Monitor, so again, that's a multiversal feat. And then you have Eclipso, who's clowning the Spectre repeatedly, with Doomsday possibly being the second, probably being the weakest member, but that says a lot here. Then you have Empty Hand, who's above True Form Darkseid. So the problem with this here is the Dark Army is not at full capacity here, at least not mentally. You see, the Great Darkness subjugates them to the point where they're fighting like brawlers. And unfortunately, that kind of does limit them, as a Emerald Knight John Stewart was able to hold off every single one of them, including even with the the backup of 2 Justice Leagues. They were getting overwhelmed until John Stewart decided to be the MVP, okay? So as for Pariah himself here, he's actually ridiculously powerful. I might do a versus battle for him if these survival videos don't really get underway, because I'm not struggling to make them. They're just taking a while to finish and properly materialize and everything, or properly just finalize what I mean. But Pariah is able to erase beings from existence. This even includes Superman, who's supposed to have erasure resistance. And this may put him, considering he's controlling the Dark Army itself by will of the Great Darkness, this may put Pariah above the other members of the Dark Army, or at least the main ones I just mentioned. There's also characters like, Deathstroke, Solomon Grundy, Mammoth, the Fearsome Five, every villain in DC that'll be participating in this battle as well. But let's move on to his opponent, Unicron. So Unicron is the Chaos Bringer and is one of the most, if not the most dangerous being in the Transformers multiverse. But let's talk about it, right? Unicron is literally the singularity of chaos, okay? So Unicron himself, right, is a threat to the Transformers multiverse, or pretty much an omniverse at this point, or megaverse, if you will. This includes infinite realities of infinite possibilities, and he's able to go around and was able to destroy this multiple times, but because of his natural balance primus, it would always rebuild itself. So this means Unicron, just as an avatar, was able to destroy the multiverse continuously until the 13 original primes were pretty much formed and were able to stalemate Unicron for millions of years. This is because the powers of Primus were absolutely spread between all the different versions of the primes. And so the problem with dealing with Unicron is that he'll always exist, even being able to cause chaos so that his body can reform, and he's able to absorb it from entities. So this again means Unicron cannot die, and he's amplified by chaotic energy. This is even from an avatar. And then if you go to his true form, the truest version of himself, right? He exists beyond everything that Primus has ever created. We're talking about the multiverse, the dimension of the primes, the dimension of the guiding hand, and being on par with Primus himself, the truest essence of Primus. Even being able to kill the truest essence of Primus for a time being. You see, Unicron's power is literally chaos itself. And this is something you cannot get rid of. Because as long as there's evil, as long as there's darkness, as long as there's chaos, Unicron will always be there. Now, in terms of hacks and abilities, Unicron can resurrect the dead, energy absorption, energy redirection. He can atomize opponents, molecular manipulation, molecular deconstruction. He can even, resurrect. He has actual, I think it's like conceptual absorption as well, meaning he's able to absorb the concept of beings. This would go into his chaotic category, or at least his chaos level category. Will him be able to absorb, chaos entity itself, even being able to fight off against the anti-matrix, which was a chaotic entity, and he simply fed on it. So again, Unicron himself here, excuse me, Unicron himself here is literally so powerful that it literally takes BFR or temporary 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 KOing, like long-term KO. Like you have to essentially BFR that man for millions of years and hope that he just doesn't come out. I would also like to note this scaling also puts him above the Elder Gods and above the Vox, who can exist and even interact with different dimensions of the multiverse. So yeah, that's pretty much both combatants here. Now, who do I think wins at the end of the day here? What do they really bring to the table? Now, as for the Great Darkness, how is it really beaten? Well, you see, the heroes themselves were able to hold off all these heroes and all these, entities entirely, to the point where John Kent was able to pretty much fight off Doomsday, True Form Darkseid, the Empty Hand, and Ares at the same time. Meanwhile, you had characters like Black Adam being able to finally kill Pariah, and just these entities just these beings that should not have been able to do what they should have. You have beings like the Teen Titans or Yara 4 being able to, take down entities like True Form Darkseid, okay? And then you just had everyone here who's mentally nerfed as well. Also, the downside of that is they're all evil. They're chaos entities. So being around Unicron and even attacking him won't work. Unicron could literally just open his hand, engulf each and every one of them, and absorb them, amplifying them. So he will be able to absorb the Dark Army itself. And then as for the Great Darkness, or even something like the Spectre going up against, Unicron. The Spectre was already a spirit of vengeance, which is pretty much in some cases a chaotic entity. This means that, again, the Spectre will get eaten as well, especially if he's a spirit of darkness in the Dark Army as well. Then there's also the scaling. These guys can both, at their baseline levels, scale to multiple layers into multiversal or their outerversal. However, Unicron has a hacks that will not be able to be beaten by the Great Darkness. He'll eat the Great Darkness itself. he'll be able to literally absorb it, feed on it, amplifying himself to proportions or maybe into levels he would never even fathom. The darkness itself can't even, warp Unicron or try to control him. It's just not possible. And this is simply due to the fact that the great darkness itself is nothing more than everything that Unicron is. But let's say the great darkness is able to destroy Unicron's avatar body. Okay. Now, Unicron's true form would definitely eat the great darkness. It would absorb everything it is into him and give Unicron probably one of the best bodies he's had in years. Because it's two true forms of darkness and chaos above the multiverse itself, above infinite layers of infinity, above so many things of power, so many relics, so many weapons, so many beings of power, that it really wouldn't matter to if the great darkness destroys Unicron's avatar form. It's just the sheer fact that Unicron himself would just go on to absorb the great darkness anyway. So even if the great darkness destroys his avatar, Unicron's true form is just simply going to be like, yeah, I'm going to eat you. GG. All right. So at the end of the day here, I would have to favor Unicron at least 10 out of 10 times. The great darkness really doesn't have a way to beat him. It can't control him. It can't influence him. It can't even absorb or add him because it doesn't have the necessary means to do that to the living embodiment, to the living concept of chaos and darkness itself. Unicron takes it at least 10 times out of 10, or if you want me to be generous, 9 times out of 10. But at the end of the day, Unicron's taking this. But let me know what you guys think down below. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.